assume even though you're playing the number one team in the country this week, the approach remains the same.
Yeah. This is a team that this is third and fourth times we're playing them this year. We felt like we played some, I'd say some decent hockey against them, looking back in the stats and box scores and so on. But I think it's too late in the year to start changing what we're doing or how we approach every weekend. So it's going to be the same.
You talk about Northern, just your thoughts on this past weekend series and just the differences between Friday and Saturday?
Well, ultimately, and I guess obviously, pretty disappointed in how Northern the weekend went. It was something that going into the series, we thought we had a chance to compete at a pretty high level and maybe get at least a result. And Friday night, we really put ourselves in a tough spot by not starting well and really digging a big hole that we couldn't get out of. I thought we responded better Saturday. We played better. We were ready to compete. We weren't ready to execute around their net, obviously. And really, Northern is one of those teams that all they need is one goal on the road. When their goalie's playing the way he was playing, we felt like the reason we didn't get the bounces is because we cheated who we are and we cheated the culture of our program on at least most of the game Friday. And then Saturday really put the pressure on ourselves to have to put it all together that one night to get the split, and we weren't able to do that.
Did you see that coming? I mean, the practice is not up to snuff.
No. I think that's a pretty good question. We didn't see it coming. I mean, had we seen it coming, I think we would have addressed it. We didn't see it coming, and I just wish we could have stopped the bleeding a little bit earlier than 3-0. We just continued to shoot ourselves in the foot after the one goal, and because obviously we weren't ready to play off the start, but had we not taken a penalty after penalty after penalty, maybe we could have stopped it at 1 or even 2 and gave ourselves a fighting chance. But, nitpicky-wise, maybe practice wasn't great last week, but it was definitely not off the charts bad. I truly believe it was a sign of a young group that maybe got caught up in the standings. Northern was 9. No matter what we had to say in terms of preparing them for Northern being a really good hockey team, they're the 19th ranked team in the country going into the series, regardless of where they were in the league. We weren't ready to compete at a high level. We're not used to being in the situation we were in. When people talk about success, our success was 500. It wasn't, 750 hockey. It was 500 hockey. Well, on a good team or a good program, that's very mediocre. That's average. That's okay. We didn't handle it well. And by the time we realized we were in a series, we were down 3-0 on Friday, and then we were just seemed to be fighting an uphill battle the whole way Friday night. And then Saturday we ran into a hot goalie, and that happens.
With, the success, and I guess you can put success in quotation marks, the previous 3 weeks, the confidence had been pretty high. I know it's only day 2 of this week. Have you seen any change in the confidence of the team after this last weekend?
I think it's still a little bit early, Everett, to talk about the confidence of our team. I would hope that our confidence hasn't changed. We've been fighting really hard to develop a little bit of confidence with what we've been doing. We addressed it Monday before our short practice that nothing has changed. Everything is still fine. We need to be on every day for us to give ourselves the best chance to win every game. Today's practice was just okay. And I don't know if maybe it was an example of now we're starting to worry or think too much about it. I don't know. We seem to have answered the bell pretty well in terms of when we're playing really good teams on paper. Ferris is not a whole lot different than Northern. Their series 2 weeks ago was one goal. It was a shootout win for Northern and a 1-goal win on Saturday for Ferris. 1 goal difference. That's how tight it is in our league. That's how tight it is every game. So we need to try to keep this level of confidence. Whatever level it is, we need to keep it. If we don't have any confidence going into this weekend with the way they're playing and the confidence they're playing with, obviously it doesn't bode well for the results. But I really don't think our confidence is shaken all that much. If a little, maybe, but I think it should be fine.
What stands out about Ferris's game?
I think it's a real balance game. You know, they defend extremely well. You know, they don't have, I heard you talking, and I feel the same way, the 0-2 team or 0-3 with Kunitz. I mean, it seemed like every time he touched the puck, he scored. You know, I was at a different place at that time, but I watched it happening. They had a really good goalie. They had a really good defenseman who wasn't a point guy, but he was a warrior type guy. And then they had Kunitz, who everything he touched went in. And I think Rob Collins was on the team or whatever. But this group seems to be a really spread out group. I mean, I think Johnston is their leading scorer with 16 goals. Kyle Bonus has 15, but the points is all pretty tight. There's a bunch of guys chipping in. So their depth up front, the fact that they've got a bunch of guys playing pretty good hockey on the back end, it really make it difficult to score. I mean, when you hold a team like Notre Dame to 1 goal over a weekend, I don't care what's going on, you're doing something right. And then it looks like Nelson is kind of taking over the number 1 role. He's the guy we saw one game, like 3 of the last 4 games we played Ferris, we've seen Nelson play, and I know he's a really good goaltender. So the depth of their team is what stands out the most. They work extremely hard. They execute pretty well, but ultimately it's their depth. They've got lots of guys contributing at all different positions, and ultimately it's paying off.
When you look at their team defense, it just seems like there are a lot of layers there, and it's hard to.
You know, you think there's a hole because they put so many guys here or there, and you try to expose that hole, and that hole closes really quickly. They just make it very difficult to score because they defend. And they're really good within their defensive system, whatever that system is. They're really good with it. I know they want to outnumber to some regard in the defensive zone, and then they work their way out to the point, which is kind of similar to what we do and a lot of other teams have gone to. But it's not like the points are wide open where you can attack them from the blue line, because you can't. That seems to close off pretty quickly. And then anytime you get a big time chance, then you've got a really good goaltender there to shut it down. So it just, I think they're really good with what they do, and they got a lot of guys doing it at a pretty high level right now.
You look at Bob and Drew, and they've never probably had a really bad team. And then they're always in the middle of the pack, and maybe every 4th year they have.
And and we talked about this earlier. The one thing that impresses me the most about Ferris now, sitting in the chair I'm sitting in, trying to develop a brand, is their brand. Their brand of Bulldog hockey, or whatever they call it that, is that relentless, tough checking, good defending team. And then you get a Chris Kunitz or a Rob Collins or a Jordy Johnston this year, or whomever it may be, that all of a sudden starts to score goals. And you've got a special team. But as you say, they never go to 11th. Them on a bad year is 8 or 9, or, you know, I'm sure Bob would argue me with that, but you always know what you're going to get with Ferris. And I think it's because when they recruit kids, they recruit them to play within this brand or under this culture, and you know what you're going to get. And that, to me, again, now sitting in the chair I'm sitting in, where we're trying to develop something like that, that's pretty impressive to do it for as long as he's done it. As long as they've done it, because I agree, it's been Drew too. Now Coffer's there, but Drew and Bob have been for the bulk of it.
As you attempt to develop this program, do you contact other coaches and say, hey, how'd you get this done?
Yeah.
How'd you do this?
It's not really a strength of mine to think of it in those terms, but I think I think we all have to come out of our comfort zone at times, and I'm going to. You know, the guys I've talked to are the guys that I know how they did it because I was there, whether it was as assistant coach or as a player. But it's the guys that are outside of that maybe are doing things a little bit differently in their way. And obviously, let's just say for Bob Daniels, it's something that has worked for him. You know, I spent some time with Jeff Blashill, who coached with Bob and played for Bob. So I've heard kind of sort of what they do, but I'm not. The first thing I don't think about is I should call Bob and see what he's done. But I'm telling you, like I say, we challenge our kids every day to come out of their comfort zone and make them uncomfortable and do things that they're not normally doing. Well, I think we should do the same thing as coaches. And I'm going to start, not to answer your question, I'm going to start to do that. I've done it, but I've done it with people that I almost know what the answer is going to be because I lived it with a different role. But I've lived as that's developed. But I do think I need to talk to people that have done it maybe at a different place where I wasn't there, not familiar with how they've done it, and get their thoughts. I'm assuming there's going to be some similarities, but there might be some differences that we could use.
when you look at Ferris's power play, it's almost 20%. Penalty killing will be big this weekend,
Yeah.
and staying out of the box.
Yeah. So our discipline has to start Friday night, not at the 10-minute mark of the first period when we're down a couple of goals, but at the 20-minute mark of the first period when we start the game on Friday night. We need to be ready to be disciplined because it's going to be a hard series. It's going to be a physical series. I don't think these two teams necessarily like each other all that much. The last series we had ended in a little bit of a scuffle at the end of the Saturday night game. We have to be ready to compete and stay within the line and not go over the line or over the edge, so we're out of control. We need to stay poised. And then when there are opportunities to kill penalties, it is going to be a big-time challenge for us to kill them. Because as much as we talked about it last week, we've given up 2, 2, and 1 in terms of power play goals against for the last 3 games. That's not acceptable, obviously. So it's going to be a very difficult challenge, but because on the other side of that coin, Kevin, we're going to have power play opportunities. This series, again, is going to come down to special teams as playing a huge part in it. And we just don't find ourselves on the positive side of that special teams games often enough. This weekend is another huge opportunity for us to win hockey games or give us a chance to win hockey games based on how that special teams goes.
Ferris is a very tough place to play. Bowling Green hasn't been up there in 2 years, and obviously this is out of your realm of control, but is there anything that you're going to do or tell your team about handling a hostile crowd? You mentioned it before, almost, some pushing and shoving after the game last time these two teams met. How are you going to go in there handling this environment?
Well, we won't put a whole lot on it other than just prepare them for this is what's coming, because it's a hostile environment on a bad year, and never mind a good year, where things are rolling the way they're rolling, and it'll be probably crazy times a couple because of the #1 ranking and so on and so forth. We've been in hostile places before. Miami's a pretty hostile place. Michigan last year is a hostile place. We were at Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago. So, I think we just go there. Western Michigan's become a pretty hostile place. We go in there and we really need to focus on the first 6 or 7 minutes this Friday night, I believe. I don't think it's a situation where we can get ourselves in a hole and think we're going to dig out of it. And there's no reason to get ourselves in a hole. If we're ready to compete and focus on executing, we'll be fine. We tackle the first 7-minute segment, then we tackle the next 7 minutes, then the next 7, and then we just could, go from there. I don't know if we can get too caught up in something. We're not sure how it's going to be. We know it's going to be loud and so on, but we're not positive. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on it. It'll be a hostile environment. We're going to have to be ready mentally and physically to compete at the drop of the puck.
Putting the hostile environment aside, it just seems like Ferris's arena leads to a different game. It seems to be like more of a pinball game.
Yeah, and I think we have to be real sharp with what we do with the puck, and again, just make it simple. Just simplify our game. We don't need to reinvent anything. We don't need to do anything special. We just need to be simple and not give them things, which the last 4 times we've played them in this building, we've given them way too much. I'm not taking anything away from the results or anything away from the way they've played, but we're giving them way too much, and we obviously, that didn't give us much success. So we can't do that. And we just want to stay poised and know it'll be the 20 of us there that night dressed and the staff on the bench, and that'll be it. Everyone else will be cheering for the other team. So we might as well just get used to it and go and play.
The injury guys, maybe starting with the Salmo.
Still in a sling, so out. Hafner seems to be getting worse, not better. So I would say out. Peltoma with that high ankle sprain, he was on the ice for the first 10 minutes of practice but came off, so I'm assuming that means out. Pretty banged up right now, but that's opportunity for somebody else to play.
When you say out, you mean not playing this weekend?
Not playing this weekend.
And where do things stand with Brett Muller? I mean, I know he's not coming back, but has he had surgery at all on the shoulder?
No, hasn't had surgery yet. The back had to get to a certain level of healing before he could have surgery, as crazy as that sounds, but apparently some of the rehab with your shoulder just operated on would put some stress on his back where he's injured it. But he's really close to being able to have surgery on his shoulder. The plan right now is that we get to August 1st. he'll be 100% ready to go. That's rehab behind him, that's been in the weight room, he'll be ready to have contact practice starting August 1st, which obviously we don't start August 1st, so that's a good thing. That still gives us another 6 or 8 weeks of a window for things to go sideways if it does. And going into this year, regardless of Brett being injured, going into next year, this was going to be a huge summer for him because physically he's not where we need him to be, strength-wise and conditioning-wise, and it'll be a real focus for him this summer, not only to get healthy but to get stronger and fitter.
So he's close to, the back is close to being 100%.
Yes, he's close to being able to have surgery on his shoulder based on his back healing.
Okay. Okay. Oh, one other thing. Do you start to pay more attention to the standings and the scoreboard now that you're within 2 weekends of the playoffs?
No,
Okay.
no. I'll pay just as much attention as I always have. I think spending a whole lot of time trying to figure out who we may play in the playoffs is a waste of time. If anyone's looking 3 through 9 in our league, or 4 through 9, or whatever it is, it's pretty tight. Or 2 through 9.
Yeah.
So we could play anybody. Looks like we're not going to go to Alaska, which is nice.
Well, to everybody but Everett. Did you see in a scenario Ferris winning the league this year?
Going into the season, Kevin, I really felt like Notre Dame on paper was the best team. So no. After having played everybody, or pretty much everybody with the exception of Michigan, yes.
All right, Burge, thank you.